Welcome back, Caustic Men. This is a 10-minute watch review. No wrist check, no BS, just in-depth with this watch in 10 minutes or less. This is the Islander 38mm dive watch. If this looks a little familiar to you, this is almost, at least dimensionally speaking, a one-to-one copy of a beloved entry-level dive watch, of course, the Seiko SKX013. This watch does have some significant upgrades over the original, and so this makes it kind of an interesting piece because it's a rare situation in which an homage watch, which is what this technically is, I suppose you could say, is significantly better than the original. We're going to go into why, but before we do that, let's knock out some of the specifications. This is powered by a Seiko NH36 movement with day and date complication. As you know, the NH36 is hacking and hand winding. The case is 38mm. Case thickness is 13mm according to the website, about 13.5 by my calipers. The lug-to-lug width is listed at 44.5mm. I measured it closer to 44 even. It has a solid screwback case, stainless steel, high polish. That's an etching of Long Island on there with the Islander watch logo right smack in the middle. Some scrawling on the back, 200 meters is the water resistance, sapphire, island watch, Islander. This has a flat sapphire crystal, and if you can see a little bit of that blue tinge across the edge here, that is AR coating on the underside of the crystal. As you can see, it doesn't do a bad job of mitigating the glare of the studio lights here. It actually works pretty well outdoors as well. This isn't entirely a third-party bracelet. As a matter of fact, the only thing that's third-party about it is these end links. The rest of it is the original Islander bracelet with the links. It's not a fully articulated 3-link. It is a faux 3-link, but it's quite a nicely done faux 3-link, if that means anything to you. The clasp is also the original Islander clasp that you'll get on the watch. So the only thing I replaced are the end links here, and the reason for that is not because there's anything particularly wrong with the Islander end links, but they do protrude past the end of the lugs here quite a bit on my wrist, and you guys know I have a 6-inch wrist. It's a small wrist, and so any extra length is going to make the watch look larger on me, and I want to avoid that at all costs. But you're going to like that Islander bracelet if you have a wrist that's even a little bit bigger than mine. The crown is screw down, of course, it is a dive watch. All the way out to stop the seconds hand and adjust the time. Screwing down the crown is very easy, especially for a watch in this price range. A lot of them kind of bind a little bit when you try to screw the screw down crown back in. Very robust crown as well. There's not a whole lot of play in the screw down crown at all, which is not something that you can say for the Seiko SKX divers. So that's a major upgrade. This crown feels quite a lot more robust. The bezel action on this is quite mushy, to be honest with you. This is not entirely surprising for a watch at this price range. It's a little difficult to actuate. As you can see, it does have some texturing on the bezel for ease of movement, but it doesn't help all that much. A slight amount of play in it, not too bad, really. One of the things that a lot of collectors have complained about when it comes to the Seiko SKX series is that the chaptering, the bezel, and the indices are not always perfectly lined up. For OCD folks like me, that can be really annoying. This does not have that problem. Everything is perfectly lined up. You can see this is a dual time bezel. It's not a traditional dive bezel, although they do have options for traditional dive bezels if that's what you want. I thought this was something a little bit different, so I went for it. I keep my dual time bezel set to Dubai time. And if you saw the Instagram post that I made that preceded this video, you already know that. And the reason that I do that is because I used to live in Dubai. And I still have a lot of friends there. It's just kind of nice to glance down at my wrist and see what time it is where they are. Okay, let's go in depth on this dial. As you can see, the indices are applied. This is another big upgrade over the original Seiko SKX series, which had painted-on indices. I do have a little bit of a complaint about the hands. I know that they're relatively easy to swap out, so this is something that I might change at some point. But for me, I like the minute hand to reach way out and nearly touch those minute markers. I've mentioned it before, I'm that kind of guy who likes to set the time exactly. And so I want to have that minute hand on the minute marker. When I'm setting this watch, I kind of have to angle it and try to make sure that it's lined up when I set the time on it. So that's a little bit of a complaint. I know most of you probably won't care about that, but that's just me. The dial is a nice matte black. It does come off a little bit blue in the sunlight because of that AR coating. You can see again that blue hue around the edges just slightly turns it blue in the sun. I really like the reflection of the indices you can see around the dial. It kind of distorts it just a little bit. I think it gives it kind of a neat look. I'm a fan of those kind of things. Maybe you don't care, but it's neat to me. The sides of the case are high polish, brushed on the top side. It looks like a circular brushing, I think. Quite nicely done. And a beautiful chamfered edge. I don't know how well you can see this. I'll try and give you an idea of that 45-degree angle and the polished chamfered edge. Gives it quite a nice look, I think. Let's get a look at this watch on the wrist. As you know, I have a 6-inch wrist, quite small for a man, but this watch I think suits me perfectly. Again, this is the 38mm version. They do have larger sizes. If you don't want to watch quite this small, they'll still have something for you. But if you're a guy with a smaller wrist, or if you're a woman who wants a dive watch that's not gonna totally dwarf her wrist, this could be a good option for you. The bracelet also tapers down quite nicely, which improves the look of it and makes it look even smaller. And for me, I'll take that anywhere I can get it. The smaller, the better. The case height is not overwhelming either. I think it's just fine. Dive watches are supposed to be chunky, and this suits my wrist quite well. This watch does represent a significant upgrade from the Seiko SKX013. The 013, I believe, has a hardlex crystal and an aluminum bezel insert. Both of which are going to scratch much more easily than the sapphire and the ceramic on this particular watch. The biggest upgrade that this watch provides, however, I believe, for me, is in the movement. The SKX013 came with a 7S26 movement, which is not hackable or hand winding. This has both, and it represents what should be the standard on all entry-level watches at this point. Mark is really knocking it out of the park with this one. He's got a myriad of different dial colors and bezel designs. If this isn't quite up your alley, go take a look. They've got something for everybody, seemingly. They've got a beautiful yellow dial that I've been considering. Okay, let's take a look at that lume. This is C3 Superluminova. Obviously, it glows pretty bright. I can't complain about the lume. It's not a flashlight, so to speak, like some of those Zelos watches you see with the insane amount of lume, but this is very, very capable. And of course, the ceramic bezel is lumed as well, which is kind of a nice look. It's very neat. Represents an upgrade over the old SKX. Okay, guys, so honestly, not a whole lot to complain about on this watch, especially at the price range that it sits at. It represents a significant upgrade to the Seiko SKX013 in many, many ways. There you have it, guys, the Islander 38mm dive watch in 10 minutes or less. Let me know what you think. Is this something you would wear? Is it something that you would mod? Am I crazy for wanting a longer minute hand? What would you do to this watch? There's so many options in terms of modding and possibilities. That's it for this time. Thanks so much, guys. I'll see you next time for another 10-minute watch review.